I have visited the slave trail several times before, but in all honesty, I'd never taken the time to understand the significance of that particular path. After taking a guided walk of the slave trail with my class, I certainly had a better understanding of Richmond's role in the slave trade. We started our walk along the canal. We followed the story of how the slaves were taken in ships to Manchester docks, where they traversed through the forest at night into downtown Richmond. On our educational walk, we passed by Lumpkin's Slave Jail, the largest and cruelest slave-holding facility in Richmond. In 2006, there was an in-depth archaeological dig of the slave jail. The excavation resulted in the finding of thousands of artifacts, from fine china to children's toys, and archaeologists were able to map out the indefinite location and parameters of the buildings. The slave burial ground is between the gallows and Lumpkin's jail, only a few hundred feet from both of them. Although the exact location of the graves has yet to be confirmed, historians strongly believe the graveyard is located there, in the heart of Richmond City. The slave burial ground was covered by a parking lot up until 2011, when efforts to preserve the slave trail encouraged the removal of asphalt from over the graves. Much like the slaves that walked the very same path we stood on, we were bound together and forced to walk silently with our heads down. The slaves traveled from Ancaro's Landing to the auction house to be sold. At this point in the journey, the graphic stories of the atrocities that occurred right where we stood felt overwhelming. I can't even begin to imagine the anguish and fear this journey alone caused for the people that traveled it. The bone-chilling descriptions that were given at each site that we visited made me feel like I was there. At times, the descriptions of what happened in the past were very disheartening, but ultimately I was inspired by how hard people worked to preserve the history of our people. Many find the story of slavery to be uncomfortable, but I feel like black, white, or otherwise, it is still our history. Even the parts that we cannot celebrate and that we must mourn for ultimately will bring us closer together as people. And I certainly felt an overwhelming amount of unity the day that I walked the trail with my classmates. The push for creating a more immersive and accessible journey along the slave trail continued until 2011. Plaques and labels were put up along the slave trail, creating an in-depth guided walking experience for those who wanted to traverse through the history of Richmond. The slave trail is completely open to the public, and I highly encourage anyone who is interested in Richmond's history to walk the trail because it truly is a unique experience. Personally, walking the slave trail enhanced my understanding of Richmond's role in the slave trade and encouraged me to learn more for myself about my past. This incredible experience has been made possible by a grant from Partners in the Arts. Thank you.